Daniel Ricciardo joining Mercedes as reserved after making new revelation. So we're going to be going through that rumor in today's video and talking more about it. So before we get into it, make sure you like this video, and don't forget, if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into today's story. So Daniel Ricciardo reportedly is talking to Mercedes about a reserve role. Daniel Ricciardo is reportedly in talks with Mercedes about the reserve role, and one that could give him a chance to race for the team when Lewis Hamilton eventually retires. That, according to F1 journalist Joe Soward. Ricciardo is leaving McLaren and potentially Formula One at the end of the season, having reached an agreement with the working team to walk away 2 years into his 3-year contract. Now, obviously, this came to a shock to a lot of people when it came to Daniel Ricciardo actually leaving. It was sad to see, but if he can come over to Mercedes as a reserve driver, I think that would honestly be fantastic. The Aussie was caught on camera last weekend telling Sergio Perez he'll take a year off and come back in 2024, but it's not known if that year off will be a complete break from Formula One or if he'll take a test driver role. Now, I really don't think Ricciardo should leave completely. I think it will be great for his career to continue to actually race, especially, and not take a full year off. It will take him a while to actually get back into momentum if he does take that year off, and I think it would also be important because he is getting older. He would want to make the most of his years that he has left during his peak age. Now, Ricciardo has said he's open to that, telling the core that he wants to hear everything. And I think this was very important because he said, even if it's a reserve, I don't want to be proud to say I'm too good for that. I just want to hear everything and see what makes sense. So I love how he actually is open to the idea of actually accepting this role as a reserve driver, and I don't think that his ego is going to get in the way. I think Ricciardo is way past that. But according to Soward, it may be 1 year away from the grid, but 2 with Ricciardo considering a break in 2023 before coming back in 2024 as a test driver for Mercedes. Now, the Briton says he's heard Ricciardo in talks with Mercedes about doing just that with an eye to a possible 2025 race seat if Hamilton calls time on his career. You got to realize as well, Lewis Hamilton is getting older by the day, so it does surprise a lot of people where his age is actually heading. Obviously, Hamilton is going to have to retire one day, and Ricciardo can definitely take that spot. He may not be the main driver, it probably will be George Russell. However, having him as a reserve driver I think will be amazing. The latest word is that Daniel might take a year off in 2023 if he's not offered the Alpine drive, wrote Soward in his latest blog. So Alpine, it is looking like they aren't really going to actually offer him a complete contract, and I think it would be better if he does go to Mercedes, in my personal opinion. Okay, me being from Australia, it's great to have someone like Ricciardo race for someone like Mercedes. Then, as an experienced F1 winner, he could return to the sport as a reserve in 2024, helping to rebuild his confidence by measuring his performance against the top names. I hear he has been talking to Mercedes about such a role, which would put him in a chance to race drive in the future if Lewis Hamilton decides that he has had enough. That must happen eventually, and while Mercedes had George Russell in place, it is waiting for the next big thing. Now, we do have to realize, and I think it is sad to say, but George Russell is going to be next in line. Obviously, with everything that is going on, Lewis Hamilton is going to reach an age where George Russell is going to overtake him. Now, I don't think that day has come just yet. I think Lewis Hamilton is still driving at a very high pace. I think what the only problem is the actual car itself that is causing him to not really be performing as high as Ferrari or Verstappen or anything like that. But there is going to be a day, I don't know when that day is going to come, where George Russell is going to have to overtake Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell has the front seat. Now, the next big thing he says is Mercedes Junior Andrea Kimi, who is racing for Formula 4 with Prema Racing. The Italian, who has been a member of the Mercedes Junior program since 2019, has won 16 races across the various F4 series he is competing in. But Soward says he's at least 3 or 4 years away from F1, so there's likely to be a gap between Hamilton's departure and Antonelli's arrival. Mercedes Motorsport boss Toto Wolff has previously spoken about having an eye on Ricciardo, but that was early into his move to Renault. That lasted just 2 years before he was off to McLaren, the only Aussie adding only 1 win to his tally since leaving Red Bull, with his P1 as last year's Italian Grand Prix. Wolff said at the time, "We always had an eye on Daniel, we really like him in here, but Mercedes opted to stick with Valtteri Bottas as Hamilton's teammate." Now, obviously, it is hard to, pick 2 racers out of the pool of great racers that are available, but the fact that, Toto Wolff Wolff is happy to get someone like Ricciardo and also the rest of the team, maybe even George Russell himself if he does end up replacing Lewis Hamilton. I think they all are very happy to have someone like Daniel Ricciardo racing for Mercedes. Now, George Russell is unsure about Monza, but team bringing a lot of performance. So George Russell does not know how Mercedes will stack up performance-wise at Monza, given the change in characteristics from Zandvoort, where the Dutch and Hungarian Grand Prix took place on a high downward force layouts that appear to suit Mercedes' strengths. Their low downforce setup has generally lagged further behind the speed of Red Bull and Ferrari so far this season. Formula One heads to the fastest circuit on the calendar at the weekend, with Monza requiring one of the lowest downforce levels of the season to be competitive. Mercedes appears to have the quickest package on race pace in the Netherlands at the weekend, with Lewis Hamilton believing the car was in a much sweeter spot than at Spa a week beforehand. But given how different Monza is at Zandvoort, Russell does not know how the reigning Constructors' champion will match up in Italy. Yes and no, he said when asked if he was surprised by how well the W13 went on hard tires at the weekend. I think the car was really feeling good this weekend from lap 1 on Friday. I knew it was going to be a much better weekend than we had in Spa. I think Spa played against us, Zandvoort probably towards us. So I'm not sure how Monza performance is going to be. I think it'll probably be somewhere between the two. Hopefully close to what we saw this weekend, but I think it's really promising. We have so much race pace. And I think this is really exciting to see, and it is going to be a really nerve-wracking day at Monza. Obviously, what has been said when it comes to George Russell not feeling too confident, I do kind of agree with that. They did a pretty good job in the Dutch Grand Prix, I no doubt about it, but I do think there is a lot to it when it comes to if this car is capable of actually keeping up with likes of Ferrari and also Red Bull. Now, Red Bull, obviously, Verstappen has just been taken over the last couple of Grand Prix, especially off this summer break, so he's been performing very, very well, but I do still think and have belief that Mercedes can overtake Ferrari. Now, Russell took his maiden Formula One pole position in Hungary before the summer break and took a podium last weekend as their performance gap to the top two cars have narrowed over the course of the year. The Mercedes driver added to the team that will still be working on and to add what they can to make the W13 more competitive as they search for their first win of the season. Now, Monza has actually produced plenty of surprises in the recent 5 years. So in 2021, Daniel Ricciardo won. We also had Pierre Gasly in 2020, 2019, Charles Leclerc, 18 and 17 was Lewis Hamilton, and 16, Nico Rosberg. So guys, when it comes to, who's actually going to be taking this, it has seen that a lot of people have been upset when it comes to, who's supposed to win. Let's say a lot of people think Verstappen's going to win. Someone ends up sliding through and getting the Grand Prix victory. So it is going to be interesting. I feel like there really isn't a consistent person for this race. Seeing Daniel Ricciardo race at a McLaren and actually win it last year or last season, I think was honestly fantastic, and it really does set up for an underdog finish. So that's why I absolutely love Monza. It's probably one of my favorite races because of that. I feel like it's such an even level playing field that anything can really happen. Now, I think there's no surprise there because there are two very similar circuits, high downforce, a lot of medium speed corners, and that's the car really comes down to its own, Russell said when comparing the Zandvoort performance to Budapest. So, we go into some very different circuits in the upcoming races, but globally, we're bringing a lot of performance to the car. And as I said, I think we have a car that is capable of fighting victory. We just need to be able to start a little bit higher up in the order. Mercedes currently sit third in the season's Constructors' Championship, 30 points behind Ferrari heading into the Italian Grand Prix. So that's honestly huge from them. Now, I also did want to talk about Mercedes' Toto Wolff, who actually had a brilliant response to being trolled over Lewis Hamilton's misery. So Mercedes boss Toto Wolff reportedly silenced the troll by putting his middle finger up to them as he drove past in his car. The troll had apparently taken aim at the 50-year-old for his reaction to the controversy that surrounded the final Grand Prix of last season, where Red Bull Max Verstappen beat Lewis Hamilton to the F1 title. So that was honestly hilarious. I just did want to bring that up. I'm probably not going to show any photos, guys, because obviously it might trigger some people, or it might trigger the people higher up on YouTube, so we're just going to leave it at that. But that was honestly interesting and just hilarious to talk about. Now, we also have a lot of other stories, especially when it comes to Mercedes, because obviously there is a lot going on. But Lewis Hamilton actually apologizes to Mercedes after being at breaking point with emotions in the iconic Grand Prix of the Dutch Grand Prix. So if you remember what happened there, guys, there probably is a video on it, so definitely go give it a read. But you know, Lewis Hamilton had stuff to say about this. He said, "I was just on edge of breaking point with emotions. My apologies to the team because I don't remember what I said. I just lost it for a second, but I think they know it was just so much passion. I want to look at it as a glass half full. We came here struggling from the last race and we were fighting the Red Bulls today. We were quicker than most at any points. I think without the safety car, I think we would have been challenging them for a win at the end with one stop, which I don't think the others could do. So many great things to take. The car was finally working. If this can be in the same in the future races, we're going to be breathing down their necks and we're going to be getting that win." So this is honestly fantastic to see, and I do agree with it, guys. You know, Lewis Hamilton, especially these racers, they are performing at the very high level. So their passion for the sport, their passion for the game honestly stays true to them. You know, it isn't any disrespect when it comes to that. I see a lot of people commenting saying, "Oh, Lewis Hamilton's, you know, a bit of a wild guy, blah, blah, blah." Guys, I'm telling you, that's just how the competitive nature of these people are. They wouldn't be here without that fire in them. So, you know, don't take it too much to heart with what happened with Lewis Hamilton. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, guys, I will leave a link in the description to the actual video that basically explains it all when it comes to what actually happened with that kerfuffle. So, you know, Lewis Hamilton, honestly, such a great racer. Now with this Grand Prix coming up, I honestly think Mercedes do have a pretty good chance, okay? With everything the way that it's looking, I feel it's a more even playing field. Now, it may not work to Mercedes' favor, but I think it does bring down Red Bull and Ferrari a little bit, where if Mercedes drivers Lewis Hamilton and George Russell can really capitalize on it, they can definitely win a double podium, or Lewis Hamilton could definitely get his first win for this season. So there's a lot to it, a lot of moving parts, but I think it is honestly going to be a great Grand Prix, and it is coming up. So let me know down in the comments what you think, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace.